Hi, I'm Liv and welcome back to the Book Nook. Hey guys, so it's January still. Still January. January feels long. Having a bit of a funny week. I can't quite get my head in the game. Can't quite focus on books, can't quite focus on reading. I'm not sleeping right, I'm not eating right, not quite feeling right. Not sure what's going on. Oh, I only had hazelnut milk and... So I thought what I would do for today's video is the first haul of the year, because I have acquired some books. So the first two are going to be ones that have been sent to me, then I've got a few that I picked up that are sort of secondhand or remainder ones, and then onto some new ones. So the first one that was sent to me is a book called Darling by, oh dear, Rachel Edwards, and this one is published by Fourth Estate, and this is about a young girl called Lola whose dad gets a new girlfriend and she's black, and the girl is a bit confused by this. So on the back it says, let's get the obvious thing out of the way, since when was he into black women? I mean, mum was it for him, the bomb, natural blonde of course, like me. Then mum dead, nothing and no one for years, a few pointless dates, and now darling, she's got to go. So it looks quite an intriguing one. It looks like a sort of examination of race and parenting and expectations and things like that, so it looks like quite an intriguing one. I've seen this, it was one that was sort of on my radar when I was looking through the Fourth Estate catalogues, so yeah. So thank you very much to Fourth Estate for this one. Then we have a very exciting one, which was one that was offered to me by the guys at 404 Inc., who of course published Nasty Women, and that is Mayhem and Death by Helen McClory. So Helen McClory is a writer who I followed on Twitter for a while, and she did a thing called the Jeff Goldblum Variations, which is just short fiction centred on Jeff Goldblum, and it's in here and it's wonderful, and these are all short fictions, but they're very, very short fictions. Some of them are barely 2 pages long, like they'd be 1 page if you didn't have a title at the top of it kind of thing. So they're short flash type fictions, which is very much my kind of thing. Anticipated follow-up collection to 2015's award-winning On the Edges of Vision. It's delving deeper into descriptively mythical yet recognisable stories woven from dark and light, human fear and fortune. And there's also a novella in here as well, Powdered Milk, at the end, so I'm really, really excited by this one, so huge thank you to the guys at 404 Inc. for this one. Okay, then on to a few that I picked up in a charity shop, and I occasionally have been known to pop into WH Smith's and have a little look at their £1 kind of remainder ones. A lot of them are kind of 50 Shades of Grey type things, but you will occasionally find some gems in there. So I found a copy of The Bookseller of Kabul by Anne Searstad. That's wrong, isn't it? So this is based on a true story, and it is about the bookseller of Kabul. Sultan Khan defied the authorities to supply the books to the people of Kabul for more than 20 years. He was sort of arrested, tortured, I think at some point, interrogated at least. And I've heard of this one quite a few times, and I can never quite remember how or where I've heard of it, but I saw there was a copy and it was £1, so I got it. Now these next two are exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say you can find some hidden gems in amongst the 50 Shades type books. First one is Antwerp by Roberto Bolaño. This is a very short book, even shorter than it looks because it is made up of very, very short bits. It's a sort of little crime story, and it was actually the one he wrote first, but it wasn't published until 2002. That was about 20 years after he'd written it. And I think I did once upon a time have a copy of this, and I do not know where it's gone, so when I saw it was there, I was like, okay, I need this again. So very, very excited to read that one. Been meaning to for a while, and as I say, I'm not sure where my copy's gone. Sod's law, I'll probably find it now. Then I found a copy of a book I've always meant to read by an author that I've always meant to read, A.M. Holmes' May We Be Forgiven. From what I can gather, this one is about 2 brothers, and one of them does something horrific, and it's the family dealing with the fallout from that. As I say, I've always meant to read some A.M. Holmes. I've always been torn between May We Be Forgiven and This Book Will Save Your Life, I think. So yeah, I shall give this one a go in due course. Then there are a few interesting charity shop finds. Now one of them I've just realised is downstairs because it's gone with the other cookery books, because I found a copy of Tender Volume 1 by Nigel Slater for £3. So obviously that one had to come home with me. And I say cookery shelf, it's basically just a Nigel Slater shelf down there now, with 1 Jamie Oliver and 1 Anna Jones. But then the other 2 books that I got were just 2 little interesting ones that I saw that caught my eye. And the first is Conundrum by Jan Morris. Now, I don't really know a lot about this one. All I know is it says, as one of Britain's best and most loved travel writers, Jan Morris has led an extraordinary life. Perhaps her most remarkable work is this grippingly honest account of her 10-year transition from man to woman. Its pains and joys, its frustrations and discoveries. On first publication in 1974, the book generated enormous interest and curiosity around the world and was subsequently chosen by the Times as one of the 100 key books books of our time. Including a new introduction, this reissue marks a return to that particular journey. So this edition is 2002, and it's just from that description on the back is sort of named at the time as one of the 100 key books of our time, and I've just never heard of it. I may be totally ignorant, probably, but yeah, was really intrigued by this one, so I picked that up. Then the next one is a book by a writer who has never really been on my radar, and I suspect that's partly a generational thing, but this one just looked really interesting, and it's Stet by Diana Athill, An Editor's Life, and it's a book about sort of her life as an editor, so I just thought that one looked quite intriguing. Okay, now on to the new books. The first one I bought is one that it came out just before Christmas, and I just kind of missed it, and with Christmas it was just not really on my radar, which is surprising, and that is The Reservoir Tapes by John McGregor. Now this is actually, as heard on BBC Radio 4, so it's actually not a book that was then turned into a thing on Radio 4, it's the other way round. So on Radio 4, after the release of Reservoir 13, there was a series of the Reservoir Tapes, which is sort of like extra little bits. So there's specially commissioned stories that I think deal with some of the characters from Reservoir 13. I totally missed the Radio 4 airing of it, and I may go back to it, but I thought I would read this in January. So I'm adding this to my January TBR because I have already read Reservoir 13, but I'm going to try and read the other Costa ones, so I thought this can sort of stand in lieu of Reservoir 13 as I've already read it, but it gives me some John McGregor and it's linked. Then I picked up a copy of another YOBB, #YOB, books, The World According to Garp by John Irving. It seems to be these new covers don't seem to quite marry up with my idea of what these books are. Strange. The older covers that I've sort of seen on Goodreads that are sort of plain covers, John Irving, and then I think The World According to Garp on the old one has a frog on it or something, for some reason just seem to marry up with my idea of the novels, but I could be totally wrong. So yeah, picked that one up in preparation for Yob, Year of Big Books. That's going to go on my little Yob pile. Then I picked up a copy of a book that is now in paperback that came out in hardback in the latter half of last year that I was quite intrigued by then and just didn't get round to, and that's Based on a True Story by Delphine de Vigan. Now this one thing I will say about the cover design, so on here you've got Based on a True Story in white, Delphine de Vigan in brack, and then on the front you have the face on this side, blue, then white. It is a very interesting design, but what they've done is it confused us booksellers because they have done some like this and some where the face is on the other side, the colours are switched around and these are switched around on there, and it confused us as booksellers because we like order, you like stacks of books to like look the same, and we had a stack come in and we were like, what's not right here? So if that was a thing that happened and your life is different now, you know that. But this is another story of sort of obsession, female friendship obsession. I think it sounds like it might be a little bit like Exquisite, and yeah, just quite intrigued by this one. I picked up a copy of a book that Simon read last year and absolutely loved, and that is Moonstone by Sion. So it's set in Iceland in 1918, and there's an outbreak of Spanish flu, and I've heard Simon just absolutely raving about this one, so I thought, oh, go on then, I'll pick up a copy. Then I picked up an interesting little book that is another one that I just saw as I was shelving things, and that is Not One Day by Anne Garretta. Now this is translated from the French by Emma Ramadan and the author, so that's quite an interesting thing in itself. I don't really know how to describe this one, so I am just going to read the blurb. A tour de force of experimental queer feminist writing, Not One Day is renowned Oulipo, is that right? I never know if I'm saying that right. Member Anne Garretta's intimate exploration of the delicate connection between memory, fantasy, love and desire. Garretta, author of the acclaimed genderless love story Sphinx, vows to write every day about a woman from her past. With exquisite elegance, she revisits bygone loves and lusts, capturing memories of her past relationships in a captivating, erotic composition of momentary interactions and lasting impressions of longing and of loss. So it just sounds like a really interesting little one, and each one is a few pages long and is just sort of, the title is the first initial of whoever she's talking about. And it just sounds really fascinating. So I was very intrigued, so I picked it up. Now, I'm a sucker for a Penguin modern classic as much as the next guy, and so when I saw the new jacket for André Breton's Nudge, I had to pick up a copy, because again, this is a book I've always meant to read. Again, I think I've got a copy somewhere, or had a copy, but I haven't seen it in a while, so that came home with me. And it's a sort of surrealist love story, but is about obsession. Again, a guy who gets obsessed with Nadja, and yeah, just intrigued by this one. Have been for a while. Interesting. I think it'll be interesting to read now. Now the last two are a couple of poetry collections that I picked up. One that I've been really excited about for a while, and one that I heard about due to a podcast. So I'm going to go with the one that I've been excited for a while, and that is Dana Smith's Don't Call Us Dead. You may have seen a few other booktubers talking about this one who were very lucky to get early copies, and it just... oh, it sounds so fantastic. It's a book about black masculinity, about HIV, about being black and gay, about being American, and it just, from everything I've heard about it, it is just one of the fiercest, most resonant collections that's been published in a while. And actually on the day that I picked this up, I popped it behind the desk because I was going to buy it, and one of my colleagues just sort of was having a look at it and read a bit of one of the poems and just went, whoa. And she's someone who doesn't read poetry. She said herself she doesn't read poetry so much, so I'm going to maybe lend her this copy, or maybe just suggest she buys her own, probably. But it looks so up my street in terms of playing with form as well, and the interaction with poetry between content and form. Oh, okay, I could go on about that, but I'm not going to. But yeah, Don't Call Us Dead by Dana Smith. I am not going to leave this one long. And the last one is a book of poetry by Vanessa Kisuule, which I've probably said wrong because I can't remember it because it was a while ago I listened to the podcast where her name was actually pronounced. And it's A Recipe for Sorcery. So I heard Vanessa Kisuule on the Guilty Feminist podcast. Sorry, my mind just did a complete blank there. The Guilty Feminist podcast. She was on as a guest talking about... I think it was the episode Living with Other Women, Living with a Feminist, and she is a Bristol-based poet, and this collection, A Recipe for Sorcery, is about femininity, black femininity, modern femininity, power. You've got titles in here like Take Up Space. You've got poems called Cunnilingus, Whore, A Moment of Silence, How to Raise a Man, Battle Rap Boys, We Don't Do Beyonce, Not Worth Shaving Your Arsehole For. They are just... I'm so excited to read this because they're just going to knock my socks off. The reason I definitely bought this one, even if she had not read a poem and had just been as amazing as she was and then said she had a poetry collection, is that she read a poem, and I've forgotten the name, but it was a poem about girls on nights out and how you kind of bond, and this sort of took you through a night, and it was absolutely fantastic. So check out that episode of The Guilty Feminist. I'll find which one it definitely was and link it down below. And check out A Recipe for Sorcery poetry collection that sort of fuses food and recipes, but is about femininity. So I guess in a way it subverts that female homemaking recipe type. I don't know, I'm very tired. But yeah, it sounds absolutely fantastic, so check this one out. Not bad a haul for only just over midway through January. So in terms of my reading at the moment, I seem to have hit a little bit of a wall. I think I don't want to fall into that kind of Blue Monday, January blues thing, but I think at the moment I'm just so tired because everything was full on for so long, and I'm just sort of still recovering from that. So I'm not quite fully with it. I've read 7 books so far and I'm on number 8, but for like the last, well, most of my 5 days off that I had, I didn't really read anything. I finished Die My Love by Ariana Harvich, and I've started Fire and Fury by Michael Wolff, of course, but not got too far with that one yet. And yeah, trying not to get frustrated at that slowdown in reading, and trying not to call it a reading slump, because that was the whole point of this year, remember, was no pressure, just read what you can when you can. But it is frustrating because the first 7 books went by so well. I was going to say so quickly, but that's not necessarily the mark of... They went by so well. Like, yes, I did read 11/22/63 quite quickly because I was enjoying it and I was reading a lot. Whereas, yeah, for the past week or so, that hasn't really happened. Like, I even got my first issue of The New Yorker through the door, and I picked up a couple of other magazines, and I just haven't been able to focus on them. I haven't really been able to focus on a lot at the moment, so boo. So yeah, this week I will also be recording my first video for the Waterstones vlog, which I'm a little nervous about. It's like a little bit different to this in terms of, I don't know, I'm just a little bit nervous about it basically. So I'm going to be recording that this week, hopefully today as I'm recording this, and then that will be going up around about the 26th, I believe, but I shall keep you posted on that. I've also got a lot going on in work, a lot of exciting stuff, a lot of exciting events that we want to do. Obviously we've had this lovely new store put in, and there's loads of stuff that we as booksellers want to do, and sort of be in the community and do stuff, so we're sort of setting up things for that, and it's really very exciting. I, knowing me, have to be careful that I don't get too consumed with one thing when I've got other things to do. So yeah, how are you? You okay? You good? Sweet. Have a little chat with me in the comments below about any book buying that you've been doing so far in January. What are you reading at the moment and how's that going? How has your reading gone so far? I know it's like quite early in the year to be like, how's your reading going so far? But yeah, have you found like a wall, like a little mini slump that's not a slump because you won't use that word sort of thing? Or is it just me? So thanks very much for watching, guys. Happy reading, and you'll see me next time. Bye bye.